Every Archbishop of Sin abides by their own twisted rules and logic. Regulus is certainly no different, but the way he exhibits greed and applies it to his own life is made most clear during this single interaction with Amelia. There was a lot to his character we unfortunately didn't get to see, including a fundamental part of his motivation that the anime even misdirected us from. Whereas here he directly states obsession over appearance to be the most shallow form of a relationship, the novel declares that as the only thing he truly values in a relationship. The way he chooses who to love is based on one's face and their face alone. Knowing this makes everything he does make a lot more sense, and it helps us to understand his own twisted logic a whole lot better. So that's what I want to talk about here, along with the start of the counterattack from Subaru and Reinhard. Let's get started. The first skipped scene actually comes from before the wedding. It involves Amelia getting ready with some of the other wives, doing her hair in a way far more complex than she ever would. It was a routine that reminded her of the times she spent with Puck. Amelia felt their efforts were wasted on her, but such a comment only made the other wives sigh. Reason being that all they cared about was not upsetting Regulus. They didn't say much the entire time they were with her, but this was the one warning they made sure to express. Now, though all their faces were for the most part expressionless, a faint bit of distress could be seen on 184. After hearing how Amelia would face the wedding in her own way, she couldn't help but feel a bit uneasy about the whole thing. That said, she did choose not to tell Regulus what her intentions were, so that, along with her presence, was enough to support Amelia's resolve here. This brings us now to the wedding, starting with the question of why she was 79. We already got the answer in the anime, but what we didn't get was the pride Regulus had for having made such a decision. You see, he was truly shocked by the way he was able to keep such a commitment. The way he believed in his feeling that someone else would come and take the seat of 79. Well, that was a level of confidence and trust that not just anyone could have. It was some self-praise that directly clashed with the question Amelia would ask after. Why was there an open seat to begin with? Well, while the original 79 did pass the most important hurdle of having an appearance he considered ideal, in the end he found her to be unsuitable. That said, in order to remember her out of some sense of lingering attachment, Regulus felt it only right to leave her seat open. This in turn led to him meeting Amelia, which was a development Regulus liked to consider fate. As for Amelia, this whole turn of events was something that just felt off. Something about Regulus's reasoning brought forth an invisible unease that was slowly coming into view, one she couldn't quite figure out yet. When Amelia went on to ask even more questions next, the whole prospect was something Regulus was surprisingly quite open to. As a couple about to become man and wife, he fully agreed there were things that could only be discussed before their marriage. Points of interest that needed to be discussed as individuals, since as this was a journey they were about to embark on together, it was of absolute importance to be prepared for it. Regulus didn't want Amelia walking into something she wasn't ready for, and that same courtesy extended back to Regulus. That's why he fully agreed the two should share their thoughts. It was to prepare for their future as husband and wife, but more importantly set their expectations as individuals. Of course, Regulus went first and explained the promises he forced every wife to abide by, but the main requirement every wife must have before that is an alluring face he considers to be beautiful. It's the sole reason he chose Amelia and all his other wives. As for why that is, well, that's something that Regulus has thought about for quite some time now. It's a personal choice that all comes back to the twisted logic that defines every single action he takes. So, in a world where most people simply do as they please, it's those who fall into love then fall out of it that truly disgust Regulus. To him, they're what he would consider utterly worthless. The way they presumably loved each other then found incompatibilities later, well, that was to him truly and utterly selfish. Whether habits, hobbies, schedules, or even food preferences, every excuse one might give to fall out of love was both trash and selfish. Reason being that if they truly loved each other the way life partners were supposed to, then there should be no excuse to drift apart from them ever. This brings into question the excuse of aesthetics, because that was an excuse Regulus believed to be the most foolish reason to drift apart. It's actually the sole reason behind why he chooses his own wives the way he does. So long as they had a face that he could love, then there was no doubt in his mind his love for them would never fade. It didn't matter the type of person they were because the face was the only thing he loved about them. As long as that remained, then his love for them would be eternal. So, whether they're a housekeeper or a serial killer, a bad cook, or someone trying to destroy the world, Regulus truly did not care. Amelia couldn't tell how many of his wives fell into these categories, but the fact he was pointing at them as he spoke made it clear he wasn't really lying about it. He was firm when it came to the stance that he would love anyone without distinction. It was at its core love that was impartial, unquestioning, and non-discriminatory. Why was it then that he wanted his wives not to smile? Well, to make any other expression other than the one Regulus determined to be the one he loved, that was something he just couldn't accept. Any and all changes of expression risked the potential of turning the ones he loved ugly, so rather than put up with a thought so unbearable, he instead saved the world from the net loss of turning her face ugly and forbid the possibility of it even happening. That's the reason behind why no one can smile, laugh, cry, get mad, rejoice, or anything. This directly contradicted his actions with 184, since if Amelia hadn't pulled her out of the way during his outburst here, then Regulus would have killed a person he says he still loved. At least according to his logic anyway. This was what Regulus simply called an unfortunate misunderstanding because his actions had nothing to do with a change in love for her. All it was a lack of attention which went to upset him. Him trying to kill her was simply him forcing her to take responsibility. Amelia believed such a reason to be fickle, but Regulus immediately clapped back by saying it wasn't. Reason being that the fact he still loved her was 100% true. It was a fact that would remain even if she had died. Just like how loved ones who have passed live on in your heart, the love he felt for 184 would have remained all the same, everlasting within him for all eternity. So such was the logic Regulus operated by. With the way it was built head to toe with a sole focus on him, not a single person was ever even considered within it. It was the result of a lifetime dedicated to refining it, a creation birthed from flawless logic incomplete by nature. This made it clear that there was no way of getting through to him, so as much as Amelia wanted to believe she could talk things out, the way Regulus stood behind his rationality made it impossible to refute it. So, when Regulus proceeded to ask if Amelia had a problem with him, all he wanted was for her to spend a little effort putting herself into his shoes. Since he had put all this effort into being considerate of her, he felt it only natural that the same courtesy be extended to him. It was, after all, the most basic of basics when dealing with people. To neglect that was a clear sign she didn't believe him to be worthy of the effort, so that by extension was what made it an infringement of his rights. An act we know is very much unforgivable. Now, when Amelia went to ask why he refers to his wives by number next, this was what Regulus considered to be a fixation on a form of address. And since we know he hates obsessing over anything that isn't form of appearance, that was just another superficial part of a relationship he felt was unnecessary. It was proof of one's lack of confidence to continue loving someone without all that extra stuff. This was something Regulus prided himself in not being bothered by, once again affirming just how pure and unquestioning his own love is. He truly believed it was his way of showing how he didn't like to put himself on a pedestal. Now, that's actually the core point I believe the anime misdirects us from, since it's not that he considers obsession over appearance shallow, it's more so he considers everything else to be. So, the direct opposite message is being emphasized in the novels. The only thing Regulus cares about is their face, and that's the main thing keeping his love for them going. This in turn makes all his rules make a lot more sense, and it defines his actions a whole lot better. Of course, Amelia would go on to deny this in her own way, bringing us to her speech, which was pretty much faithful all the way to the end. The one thing I do want to make clear though is that Amelia had no intent on giving up here. She was actually preparing herself for a counterattack and even getting ready for whatever battle was about to come next. It was right as they were about to clash though that's when the door would hit Regulus. The thing is, the impact didn't send him flying like how we saw in the anime. He had instead brushed it aside like it was a bug. This is more in line with how his authority works, since as far as we know, physical attacks shouldn't affect him. So it's only a minor difference in which the door doesn't make contact, but what we got instead was so much more satisfying. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Season 3 Part 1. I hope you enjoyed learning a bit more about Regulus, and if you did, then leave a like and let me know in the comments. The whole playlist for the previous episodes are down below, and if you want to watch DanMachi videos, then you can watch those too. That's the series I'll be covering until ReZero returns. But anyway, until next time, ciao!